I would just like to firstly thank you all for coming. This is our 5th Share and Connect. Each one of them has been really special, with beautiful, generous, informed, intelligent, creative guests sharing their stories with us about different elements of their practice. And today we have the lovely Heather Vollans. I did have the fortune to meet Heather a few years ago, and Heather is a Australian Canadian. We've got a couple of Australian Canadians, haven't we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
And I'm going to pose the question to you, Heather. The question to you is, why Mosaic? What is it about Mosaic that offers you something different from other mediums?
Okay, I think for me, when it's such a hard question to answer, isn't it? But I started thinking about where I came from and where I am today and what was that journey like. So I think for me, starting Mosaic was almost like graduation from other things that I'd done, because I did oil painting and decoupage, quilting, paper mache sculpture, all sorts of things that when I went to write my first artist statement for an exhibition, and I had to actually really think about this, I realized that all of the things that I had done before were all about taking something old, something reusable, something that was ruined, and making something else out of it. So when I started doing Mosaic, I realized that that was just a continuation of what I'd already been doing. So I think Mosaic for me, I mean, it certainly became much more over the years, but that's how it started. So it wasn't until a few years into it that I began to, really get excited about the possibilities. And for all of us, it's really about that journey and how you've progressed through that journey. And, you go off at a tangent, or you go off in one direction, go off in another direction, specialize or not specialize. So I think for me, after I'd been doing it for a while, I realized that, oh my God, I have really grounded here. This is what I've been searching for 30 years before I even started doing Mosaic, because I realized everything else I had done was all Mosaic related. I just didn't understand the connection. But now that I'm doing it, it's like, I can't imagine even going back to another art form, because the materials truly speak. And, for me, it's purely about the materials and the experimentation. The experimentation is really important. And I don't produce, every good piece is not great. And I think I said at the man's discussion, there's a lot of stuff that's not great, and you have to figure out what to do with it afterwards. But it's the journey and the experimentation that's the really important thing. And that's what I find with Mosaic that really, really fires me, that I'm not sure I would have with anything else.
Absolutely. And you have been through a process of distillation in your practice. Like, you finally distilled whiskey. You've been paring down, you've been making more intentional decisions around your materials. And today's sort of overall topic is working with natural materials, and each of the speakers today work with natural materials in a different way. And tell us about that process of trying to focus in.
Well, it's certainly a long journey. It's not something that happens overnight. It's, having a dedicated studio time almost every day is for me really important. And there are some days when I achieve something. There are other days when I haven't achieved anything, but actually I have, because I've done some kind of exploration that means either, no, I'm never going to do that again, or that's kind of interesting. What else can I do with it? And what else can I explore about that? And that's what I really enjoy about working with the natural materials is, you cut the stone, you sliver the slate, like there's often a surprise in there, and including the smell that comes with it. It's it's all part of the it's all part of that package, right? So it's the package of the exploration that really truly does fire me. And I think that's why now I think I could change my mind tomorrow, but at the moment I feel like this is where I should be. And I'm totally fired by it. So.
And that sort of feeling of this is where I should be, there's like a connection that you have. And I think you've described it when we were chatting earlier about a primordial connection. When you're breaking stone, you're working with stone, you're with the material, and you're trying to create, there's a simplicity and a calmness that comes with that. And you described it as looking for the simpler you get, and the more drama comes from the material itself. The material itself can have space to breathe and to show itself in a way. How did you come to that realization?
I mean, discipline was a lot of it. I do set myself targets in the studio if I have the luxury of just playing. So I always set myself a target for, for this day or for this week. And I might say to myself, well, I'm just going to use this one material. I'm going to experiment with the cuts. I'm going to lay them differently. I'm going to try and change the background color, try to do something different. But all the time, it is truly about, it's really hard to describe, but the materials somehow tell you, when it comes to natural materials, they tell you what they want. And I know there's some days I really struggle with what I want to do. And until I can get past what I want to do and figure out what actually works with the material, then I can't move forward. And afterwards, I think, oh yeah, how come I didn't figure that out earlier on? But you have to go through that agonizing, it's a balance between the drama and the calmness. The drama is sometimes the frustration you go through with trying to do what you think the stone wants to do or what you want to do with the stone. On the other side, once you finally figure that out, there's a certain calmness that is that is truly irreplaceable. I don't know how to describe it. I put something on my Facebook a few weeks ago about the way that stone makes me feel. And I really do think this, and any of us who work in natural materials probably feel this, because stone has an energy. It truly does. And I feel it when I'm working with it. If I'm having a bad day trying to produce what I think I want to produce, and then I swap tacks and go and pick up some stone and just cut the stone, all of a sudden I'm in a different mental space. And I cannot describe it, but it's why I usually just work with stone now. Sometimes I work with other things too, but there's a space and energy and a headspace and a heart and soul space that I'm in with stone that I don't feel with any other material I work with.
And that act of breaking open a stone and then revealing the face of it that's never ever been seen by human eyes,
no.
That's a real special thing, isn't it?
Such a thrill. And then, you think about, who else has seen this? Who else has touched this stone? Well, particularly if you're talking about pebbles, and I'm sure John would say this too, finding the right pebble, cutting it, exposing the inside, deciding whether to use the outside of the stone or the inside of the stone in your mosaics. All of those multiple decisions that you make along the way all come from the stone itself. So you have to try and get yourself into the space where you say, not this is what I want to do, but let me open this stone up and see what the possibilities are and what I can do with those possibilities. So that's why I love, my chosen materials so much, because that's what it does for me.
And can you speak about your kind of turning points for me a bit, Heather? Can you speak about those moments where you really had the ahas? Because I've had a few. I mean, in my practice, I think I can think about a couple of 3 or 4 ahas. I've got aha, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right. They all clicks for you.
Yeah.
What were yours? And also your very special experience with your mentor, Dugald MacInnes.
He was a major factor. The other previous factor I had was about a year before that, we moved house. And I came from a 50-foot barn, which was my studio. And my studio has gone into a 10 by 10 room with a garage on the side for the storage of my stone. But my working space is tiny. So all of a sudden, leaving this beautiful farmhouse, I had to decide, you know, what do I really want to focus on? What do I really want to work with? And I had, like all of us, right? So many materials. And I just had to cull it. And I'd been working with stone at that point for about 5 years. And I just thought, I think it's just going to be mostly natural materials. And so that's what I started doing. I culled everything. I'd been doing concrete work before, figured out I was getting too old to carry those 50-pound bags of cement around anymore and all the sand. So I thought, no, the concrete's got to go. And, you know, I'm going to get rid of everything else pretty much. So pretty much all I have left now is, you know, little porcelain, lots of stone, and some metals. So that's basically what I'm working with now. So that was the one thing.
It was a forced reduction. Like, you know, you had to make those decisions. You had to sort of think, because we all collect. We're like bowerbirds. We collect and collect. I might need that, and I might need this, and maybe one day I'll work with that. And why don't I just keep this in the case? And then you're sort of drowning underneath stuff, and then sometimes you can't see the stuff because of the other stuff. And I suppose reducing, and because also as mosaicists, often we don't waste things. We don't like wastage. We honor everything. We honor the rusty nail from the floor. We honor the little. That little bead off the necklace that's, you know, fallen off. You honor the little gemstone. You honor that bit of marble under the table. You know, you don't want to throw things away. But then again, you can become so overwhelmed with the material that you're spoiled for choice.
Yes, and I do have to say, when I was sorting out my studio to move, I found a lot of things that I thought, oh my God, I've probably had that for 10 years and I've never used it. Am I actually realistically going to use it unless I have another life? So that was what helped me decide about what materials to get rid of. So, and that was a really good thing, because when I started working in my new space, it was a very modern space as opposed to an old barn. I had a limited amount of space. The light is absolutely fabulous. And so I decided when I moved in, I was only going to have my absolutely essential tools in the studio with me. All of my materials would be stored in the garage. And yes, it is a pain to go upstairs and downstairs to get the material all the time. But in terms of a working space, it actually works so much better because everything's in front of me. So it was a really good move. And psychologically, I think it was a good move too, because seeing those materials every day gives me more possibilities of what I can do with them. If it's put away and you can't see it, then you kind of forget you have it.
So you can see it. And I think a few artists have said that they need to be able to see it to then sort of recall that it's there and how they can use it.
Yeah.
And so you were awarded the Robin Brett Scholarship. And as part of that scholarship, you were able to access a mentor. And can you tell us about that process?
Oh, it was truly amazing. I applied for the Robin Brett 2016, and I thought, no way, you know, there's no way I'm going to get this. But I wrote a proposal that said I'd been working with stone for a while, but I didn't know how to simplify it. At that point, I was still into more like mixed media, mixing other materials with the stone. And I really wanted to learn about the emotional process and the psychological process of paring down. And I didn't physically actually know how to do that. So that's what I asked for in my proposal. And It was just working with Dugald MacInnes. I worked with him for a week at the Chicago Mosaic School. And I have to say, it was a really tough week because I don't do well in a workshop environment. I get very nervous when I'm with a group of other people learning. So I make copious notes. I don't often do very much in the workshop, but I'll go home and think about it, and then I'll start working on it. That's the way, after all of these years, I finally figured out that's the way my brain works. So this week was no exception. I was excruciatingly nervous all the time. I made a lot of notes. Pretty much everything I did for the first couple of days, Dugald tore apart. He did the same with everybody. He wasn't singling me out, of course. But I was really feeling threatened. It was really hard for me to work with the kind of structure that he was giving us. But by the time I got to the Thursday afternoon, and we'd done copious samples over the first 3 days. By the Thursday afternoon, there was this one particular moment where I don't even remember what he said, but there was one sentence that I thought, oh my God, that's what he means. Okay, that's what he means. And by Friday, I was on fire. And I could have done that whole week all over again. With that new knowledge that I had learned. So when I came home, I spent weeks and weeks and weeks just producing stuff, trying to follow the instruction that he gave. And that's when I really began to feel a shift. And it was very much an emotional and heady experience. When I got to the point where I thought, now I think I'm beginning to get an idea of what he means by paring down. So not only just one material, but, turning the tesserae, can I use it this way? Can I use it that way? Is there a little spark in this one that I can make the most of? Are there streaks of marble running through it? Are there, other indentations? Are there rust marks on it? Are there whatever? And it really truly became about using that piece of material that I had in my hand and not dismissing it. And sometimes I would have a piece in my hand and I would spend 5 or 10 minutes just on the studio table thinking, well, this is such a beautiful piece. What can I do with it? I don't want to discard it. I don't want to cut it. I want to use it just as it is.
Just as it is, yeah.
So
that was how it all started. What a special experience. And it it's really great that you've had that opportunity. I also was a scholarship recipient, and it was made a big deal.
Yes,
it was a huge deal for me as well. And I also went to the Chicago Mosaic School to learn. And, I really understand that immersive experience and how valuable those immersive experiences are. So Heather, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. It's been
very welcome.
And you're so honest as well. You're really open. You're really open and you're vulnerable, and you're sharing how you felt. And I think this is such a valuable thing to hear, for people to hear, because often people are feeling nervous, or they're feeling anxious, or they're feeling unsure, or they are feeling overwhelmed with their mosaic. And hearing you share in this way, I think it's a real comfort.
And I don't think it's an easy journey for any of us, right? There's 3 steps forward and 4 back, and another 3 forward and another 1 back, and we've all thrown out a lot of work, right?
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Heather.
Thanks everybody. It's great to see you all.
Saskia, one of our co-hosts, has been collecting questions, and I think Saskia, there were some questions for Heather. Is that right?
We have a lovely question from Linda Weiss.
Okay.
And Linda would like to, she was struck by the statement, had a statement about the natural materials. And Heather, would you like to sort of expand a little bit more about how these materials tell you what they want?
It's really hard. it's really hard to explain it. I can only say it's like the sitting of the materials on the studio table and cutting that stone open is how it all begins. And sometimes I sit with a piece of material for like a week, 2 weeks, sometimes longer, figuring out what I should do with it. But when I think I finally figured it out, I either feel good about it or I don't. And if I feel good about it, then I tell myself that's what the stone wanted. I don't know. It's a really hard thing to explain. It's emotional more than anything.
It's like you build up that or create some sort of a intuitive connection with that material as you have it in your presence, and then it sort of evolves from that.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen quickly, you know, which is why that studio time is so important. That dedicated studio time is, and also why some days you feel satisfied and some days you don't. And I mean, that happens with any material, right? But yeah, sometimes I can spend a lot of time just thinking. I dream about it, or I think about it while I'm making dinner or whatever, you know. My husband says I'm off with the fairies most of the time anyway.
How wonderful.
You have to pick your audience. You have to pick your audience. We're all obsessed. We could just talk about Mosaic non-stop and people get a bit tired of it sometimes. Enough now.
Can I share comments about, can I share a comment too?
Yes.
I just, in that the same vein of that question, when you said that, I also was struck, as Linda was. And I know a lot of like stone sculptors that are working with, there's a lot of sandstone where I live, and they really believe that there is something in the stone that you're really just sort of the channel that reveals it, so I think that is common with like sculptors of stone for sure.
I truly believe that about stone. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that effect as well, I was just having this conversation the other day with a friend who he just is a big geology buff and loves stone. And he was saying that, stone actually has a spirit, that a lot of sort of ancient traditions believe that it actually holds the qualities of consciousness. And so it's a spiritual material to work with. It has like this birth and this evolution, and it has a consciousness. And so it doesn't surprise me that, you feel something so magical or special, because it really is like working with a spirit, not just,
in our society, we've really gotten away from those, any kind of connection with nature, right? So yeah, it's a wonderful feeling, I tell you. It is. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Heather. I'd like to ask you one final question. What's next?
I have a solo show coming up too, which I haven't actually started working on yet, but it's 2024. So I keep telling myself I have time. I know it's a fallacy, because you don't, because all these things take so long. But yes, I have a nice solo show coming up, which I'm really thrilled about. So in the local gallery here. So that'll keep me busy. I've also got a lot of really exciting teaching this summer. It's like now that COVID is hopefully passing us, everyone is excited to get back into classes again. So my summer is very busy, my northern summer. So excited about that.
Beautiful. Looking forward to seeing what you create next.
Thank you.